In this video, we'll learn how to import texture maps into Mari. Okay, so I'm still working with this fresh project that we created in an earlier video. Now, this project, as it sits right now, is reminiscent of many projects when I first start them. And there's a few things that I like to do just to sort of ramp up and get ready to paint my textures. One of those things is to bring in any kind of additional maps that were baked out of, say, a high poly sculpting application like ZBrush or Mudbox, something of that nature. These maps would include things like displacement maps, normal maps, any kind of bump maps, things of that nature. So now in the case of this assassin asset, she is very high resolution, but there were some of the pieces that I did decimate down so that they were lower resolution, and instead of basically communicating those details with polygons, I baked out a normal map to do so. Now what I'd like to do is bring those normal maps here into Mari so I can see those additional details. So let's just jump over to our shaders palette here, and the first thing we'll do is go ahead and add in a new channel for the normal map input. Let's go ahead and click that new channel button here, and I'll go ahead and name that channel normal, and I'm going to go ahead and leave that set to the size of 2K. We'll set it to an 8-bit channel, and we'll leave the rest of these settings alone. Let's go ahead and hit the OK button. Now, as soon as we do that, the channel will be created and it will be plugged into the normal map input. Now, we'll see something a little bit strange in the canvas here as a result of doing that. Basically, the BRDF shader that we're looking through is expecting normal map data to be on that channel. And right now, there's nothing on there because we filled that with just a gray color. Let's go ahead and fix that. We'll just jump over here to our channels palette. You can see I do have the normal channel selected here. Now, for the normal map, while I do have normal maps for some of the patches, I do not have them for all. So we're going to import just the normal maps that I have. We can do this a couple of different ways. We can right-click on the normal channel and come down here to Import. Or we can do this through the Channels menu. Just simply come down to Import with that normal map channel selected. Now there's two different options here. We can either create a new channel with the imported data, or we can import this data into the layer stack. Now we haven't talked about layers yet, but for right now, just know that each channel we create has a layer stack that comes with it. And we'll talk more about that in an upcoming video. But let's just go ahead and select this Import into Layer Stack option. Now this is going to give us the file browser here, and I'm just going to go ahead and browse over to where I have these project files saved. And you'll want to look inside the Images folder, and there'll be a Normal Maps folder in there. Now when I go into that folder, you'll notice here that there doesn't appear to be any files in this folder, but notice here that we have this template. Mari by default is going to look for files saved according to, in this case, this template that's looking for a channel name, a layer name, a UDIM number, .tiff. These particular normal maps were not saved with this template. They weren't exported out of Mari, so they're named differently. So the easy way to find them is just to clear that template field out. And you'll see that these maps pop up here. And you'll see that I have 4 of them. Let's go ahead and make sure that we have the correct patch selected here. I'm actually going to close this out for right now and come over and just simply use my selection tool to select the patch for the body. We'll come back over here and import into Layer Stack again. And I'll probably have to browse to those project files, which is okay. Just jump in here really quickly, won't take long. Clear out my template field. Fantastic. So the reason why I wanted to make sure I had that patch selected is because I'm not importing normal maps for all my patches. I just want to bring in the body normal map. So what we can do here is we can either import all patches, which Mari's not going to do successfully based on the fact that it doesn't know which of these maps would go on which patch because they weren't using that template. What we can do instead is we can just select the body normal map and import selected patches. That's why I went ahead and selected that patch. So we'll go ahead and do that here. We'll go ahead and import that normal map. Mari's going to go through the process of bringing that image in. It should happen pretty quickly here. And once we do that, let me just deselect it here. And what we'll see here is that this is going to look a little bit strange. Now, obviously, we have some issues in terms of the other patches, but even the body has kind of a weird reflection showing up here, and it just doesn't look correct. We've got some weird shading going on. So the problem here relates to color space, and the color space that this channel is currently using. Now, color space is a topic for an entirely different video, and we're actually going to be talking about that here very shortly. But for right now, in order to get this fixed, we need to jump over to our normal channel. Look down here inside the parameters for that channel, and you can see here that the color space under color data is set to sRGB, which is automatic. That's going to be the default. And typically when you're looking at something like color, you would want to leave it set to that. Now, with a normal map, if you've ever rendered something like that and utilized a linear workflow, you know that we don't want to gamma correct that. And essentially what we're looking at here is a double gamma correction. We're getting gamma correction here because that sRGB color space is being applied. And then we're also using a view transform for the canvas, which is applying additional gamma. So the solution to this for channels like your normal, your roughness, and your specular, you're going to want to come in here and just either check this raw data box, or you could switch this over to a linear color space. Typically, I'll just go ahead and check raw data, and that should fix the problem with previewing this normal map. So now looking at that body, we can zoom in here and we can start to see, yeah, we do have some of those high resolution details showing up. Great. So let's go ahead and bring in those other three maps really quickly. I know I have one for the belts. We'll come over here and import into the layer stack. And since we just imported one, it should remember my directory. We'll grab the belts, normal, import selected patches. And there we go. Image number 2 has been brought in. If we want to just deselect and verify, we can zoom in on that. And you can see, yeah, there's some of those stitches that are part of that normal map. Great. Let's go ahead and bring in yet another image here. We do have one for her bra, so we'll go ahead and import in that particular map to the layer stack. And we'll let Mari process that. There we go. Should happen pretty quickly here. And lastly, I have one for the pants. So we'll go ahead and bring that one in as well. There we go. All right, great. So we've brought in all of our normal maps, but we've only got normal map data for 4 of the patches for this asset. You can see they look great, but some of these other patches still don't look very good, like her head, for example, and these shoulder pieces. Let me show you what this looks like in the UV view. Jump over here, and I'm going to go ahead and just click this button to view only the current channel. So we're not looking through our BRDF. And you can see what this looks like. Now, granted, this doesn't look like a typical normal map. Keep in mind that we are looking at it through a view transform, and we could come down here into the color space toolbar and we could actually turn that off. And there we go. That looks more like a normal map that we're accustomed to seeing. But the problem here is we have lots of these gray patches, and for the normal input on our BRDF, this isn't going to work. So typically what I'll do, let me just turn my view transform back on. I'm going to dive into the layer stack to do this. Let's just come over, make sure our normal channel is selected, and we're going to click on this little hamburger icon right next to it. Now, at this point, we're inside the layer stack, and I just want you to follow what I'm doing here. We're going to talk about layers in an upcoming video in a lot of detail. I'm going to come down here and select this base layer, and I'm going to click this button here, which is for procedural layers. And I'm going to come in and add just a color, a basic color procedural layer. Now that's going to create a layer above the base, which is below all of these imported maps right here on these layers. And what we can do here is we can come in and just click on this little color swatch. And I can come in here and use this eyedropper tool to select a color. Now, real important, we want to make sure we switch from pick raw pixels here on the canvas actually, you're probably set to a default of pick screen pixels. We want to pick raw pixels. So I'll go ahead and make sure that that is selected. We'll click on this little eyedropper, and I'm going to come over and click on the normal map. So we're basically just sampling a purple color from the normal map that exists on one of these other patches, and we're filling all of the other patches with that color. There we go. So the result here, if we jump over to our orthographic view, you'll see here that we now have normal information on all of the patches, which is what we want. And we can come over and select our BRDF shader. And now we should have a nice clean preview of the normal information without any kind of weird artifacts or weird shading issues on our mesh here inside of Mari's canvas. All right, great. So in this video, we've learned how to import our texture maps that may be baked out from another application into our Mari project.